Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 185. Today on the show, we're going to answer the question, is there another mindset than destroying your opponent if you want to be in high performance? And we have a number of other really good questions that I'm going to answer. Hello, my name is Weldon, and this is my show. I'm a sports psychology trainer. I train professional video game players, athletes, depending on how you look at it. I see them as athletes. I tell them that they're athletes, and we make them the heroes of their own adventures in terms of their mindset. And this is the show where you ask questions and I answer them both from a sports psychology perspective and with the experience that I have in training League of Legends and or the other esports that I've worked in. You can submit questions for the show by going to anchor.fm/Weldon Green, anchor.fm/Weldon Green, WELDON. And just clicking the little follow button on your phone, and then you don't have to follow me, actually. I don't think. You can actually just straight up message me. Send in your audio question. I will play it here on the show and answer it for you. Or you can come to the show before and after this particular recording, because this is kind of like a talk show where I hang out with the audience on Twitch before the show, then I hit record and I talk to you guys. Then I hit stop and I hang out with the audience again on Twitch, and they ask questions in Twitch chat, very similar to the same way that you're going to hear questions answered here. And I tackle them with them and do lots of follow-up stuff. So that is twitch.tv/mindgamesweldon. And if you're actually watching this today on Monday, then you should stop by tomorrow, because we're going to do our very first Training Tuesday, maybe, if I get my act together. And we're going to have a live training session streamed online. Don't worry, though. That'll probably also be on YouTube. Okay, guys, why don't we jump into the show today? I want to get into the questions. It's been almost 4 days since we've had one of these shows, because I've been expanding my content library and trying some other formats. On Friday, we had Fitness Friday. On Saturday, we had Science Saturday. You can see both of those attempts at really cool shows on the Twitch channel. They're not on YouTube yet until I perfect them. And then on Sunday, I was sick, so here we are on Monday with a new Ask Weldon show, and I'm ready and raring to go. First question is from Leo Gutin.
Hello, Weldon. I just had a conversation with a coach of pretty height athlete, and we was discussing about the facts, about the mindset you need to have to get to the higher level of your activities, and what say pretty hurt my feelings. For him, all the best athletes that he know had the mindset to kill their opponent on the field, and that really hurt my values when I see coach of young talented children learn them to become household for the purpose of the performance, and there must be another way. So I wanted to ask you, do you think this mindset of kill your opponent is the best to become athletes? Do you think there is one best mindset, or there is many mindset, like there is many different people? And what can I do to help myself and others to find their best mindset for optimal performance? Thank you.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this really interesting question and the context and the story behind it. I hope that we can satisfy you and unhurt your feelings in terms of what this guy told you. So, first of all, how do I want to say this? The answer is possibly not. It could be that there is no mindset that allows you to get to the top when you do not want to destroy your opponent. But I don't know about that. And we'll delve into that in a second. Okay, we'll talk more about that. But there is a section where you are misinterpreting what is possible with this mindset, where you think that in order to have the mindset to destroy your opponent, you need to be an a-hole in some way, or that you need to have that mindset all the time, or that you can't actually love somebody at the same time. So it is quite possible to be very kind, generally speaking, and to love your opponent or the person you're playing against with a deep, deep compassion, and still want to destroy them in the game and defeat them very, very dominantly when you are playing against them in a particular match, and still love them at the same time and want to beat them for that purpose. Okay? So the motivation behind the mindset can be many different things. And I think that the motivation is much more important than the actual mindset. If you want to destroy them out of love and out of ambition and out of desire to further yourself and to crush them so that they can rise again, from the ashes like a phoenix, then you have a very healthy way of looking at destruction and friendship and love. So I think that there are many people that you would think are very nice athletes who would never have this mindset, but then when you find out, when you talk to them and you ask them, hey, what do you want to do to your opponent in this particular game? Their answer is, I want to make them score 0 points. I want to destroy them mentally, emotionally, and utterly. I want to play the perfect game. And I want to make it feel like they're completely powerless to do anything against me. So there is always this thing where if you say like, no, my focus is only on myself and I want to perform at my best, it's impossible in these competitive human-on-human games to have that mindset in an honest way without thinking about your opponent. And that means that if you do want to play your best, then it's all relative, right? Everything in a person versus person setting is relative. When you say play your best, it's if your opponent shuts you down and doesn't allow you to play your best, or if you play your best and it's not even close to the appropriate level, most people are not going to be satisfied because it's a relative thing. Now, this mindset is not necessary if you're playing a solo sport where you're doing something like painting, or you're doing a craft like music where it's not a competition, or you're man versus nature like you're squirrel diving, where you have you're jumping off a cliff and you have the squirrel suit, when you're flying through the air. Okay? These endeavors and these sports are purely about mastery, and you don't have to destroy anything. But if you're talking about a person versus a person competition, it's possible that there is no other mindset that will get you to the top. Now, this begs another question. Have I run into anybody who does not have this mindset? And the answer is yes, I have run into people who do not have the mindset of they want to destroy their opponent, and they were not very good. And I've also run into people who said they didn't have this mindset, but then when we talked about it, after a while, I was able to get them to confront the fact that they do have this mindset, and then work on helping them own up to it and do it in a very kind, loving, and correct way. Okay? Because there are people that feel like they have to be a-holes in order to have this kind of mindset. I think Steve Jobs is a good example of this. Steve Jobs is a good example of somebody who, like, their way of living out this mindset of wanting to be like a titan in the industry was to be kind of a jerk. And then there are ways to do it where you're not actually a jerk also, but you're doing the same exact thing, where you're just trying to be a nice guy. Maybe that's not the best term to use, because nice guy is now a meme, thanks to PewDiePie and the nice guy meme. But anyway, where you're trying to be a kind person. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that it's helpful to hear. And I'm sorry that I can't tell you that I know a ton of athletes who are sitting around at the elite level and have flowers for their opponent and are all focused only on themselves and on mastery, but that's really not how it works. In order to get to the top, you have to be fiercely competitive and desire to beat your opponent. And you also, by the way, have to be fiercely mastery-oriented, and you have to really want to hone your craft individually with no other people on the board at all, just by yourself. You have to want to hone your craft and be better than yourself when you go to sleep than you were when you woke up. So you need both components to kind of reach for the stars, as it were. You can now, if your goal is not 0.1%, if your goal is not to be the 0.1% at the top in the LCS or in whatever pro league you're looking at, don't worry about it. Like, if your goal is just to be high rank, you can be really jovial and fun, and you can be like, I'm a cutie pie, and you can like, okay, well, that's not, he kind of like wants to crush his opponents too, but you can be like a nice, you can have like a mastery mindset and reach a high rank in a game, but you can't reach a mastery mindset and I think you can't solely have a mastery mindset and still end up being a top like 0.002% performer in the world. Like you just have to want to beat other humans if you're going to be the best in the entire world at something. Or else you won't have the motivation compared to somebody who does want to. I don't think it's possible to replace that. It's additive. They have the same mastery motivation as you, but they also kind of want to do the other thing. So they have twice as much to draw on. Okay, second question.
Hi, Weldon.
Hi,
I
Miles.
play 6, and I was wondering how about I could go with improving the team play between all of our members. I feel like at the moment we're very individualistic with our play style, and I was wondering how about I could go inspiring that teamwork into all of the players and myself. Thank you.
All right, Miles, thank you for the question. So you have a team, and you guys, I assume, have a training time, and you want to try to get them to do teamwork as opposed to wandering around individually. So this requires grunt work. This requires you or some coach or somebody to come up with set plays and then to force the team to do them until the execution of the set plays is more coordinated and gives you a better result than individual coordination without set plays. Okay, so the way to force teamwork on a squad that is individualistic is to coordinate set plays and practice them and then execute them until it's very clear to everybody on the team that worked better than an individual play would have worked. And then people are motivated to start looking at ways that they can amplify their own play with smaller, I would say, skirmish style plays. So you have two kinds of plays, right, in esport, in these complex esport games. You have set plays, which are ones that you could think about before the game, you could visualize, and you could say, like, okay, this is something that we want to be able to do, and it takes like anywhere from a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 man coordination, and you have to, like, you do it pretty much the same in every game, and you try to pull it off, and you can actually practice it. And then you have the skirmish plays where it's like 2 or 3 people, and you just need teamwork, right? You need it's on the fly, it's improvised, but it requires good communication and good teamwork. And now this is something that you have to just have organically happen in your team. It's hard to practice something that you always need to improvise. So you have to train, and after every game you have to say, oh, here I could have helped you do this, or John could have helped you do this, or Alex could have helped you do this. And the focus should really be on the communication system for these skirmish plays. So 2 things need to happen. First, do these set plays, right? You have to come up with a set play. You have to sell it to the team. You have to convince them to train it. And then it has to actually be better than whatever else you were doing. And through that, you'll get to kind of grease the wheels and have these set plays. And then for the skirmish plays, you have to work on communication, consistent communication. You have to say, like, okay, at this point, we've learned now from this failure that we need you always to say when you're going here. It might, like, 90% of the time it won't matter, but 1% of the time, like, John can hear it and be like, oh, I'm in position here and I can, we can do this thing together. So it's really about consistent communication and communication policies. I was going to say communication patterns, but I think communication policy is a better term. In order to improve the team play in the last 2 teams I worked in, where I actually had control over this, I set up communication policies, and I focused on giving feedback over and over again to people about their communication at specific times, because that is the birth of all coordinated team play that is not just based on line of sight, based on, like, seeing your teammate and kind of riffing off of them physically. Now, you shouldn't discount this body language communication. You shouldn't discount the team play that happens when you are a really good individual player and you see what your teammate is doing and you kind of just, like, fold into that automatically with no talking at all. Okay, because that is the fastest and most fluid way of doing organic teamwork. But if it's not surfacing in the communication system, it can't be consistent on the best days and the worst days and kind of every other game. So I would say those 2 things are what you need to do. And for communication policies, Rainbow Six, I don't really have any good examples. Like in League of Legends, I would have the top laner communicate the teleport window for him and his opponent, every certain amount of time or something. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of communication systems. Okay, third question.
Hey Weldon, I have a question about risk takings in game and how these risk takes have an impact on how you improve as a player. So, for instance, I have two players, and there's a team fight in League of Legends. The team fight is high risk, high reward. A player like Uzi would dive in and go for the big play, and he would outplay his opponents. Forgiven, when he used to play, or at least I felt like it, he would just evaluate the situation, back off if he felt like the team fight was bad, and then farm 100 CS. Does these two different decisions have an impact on how the players improve on the long run? Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, first of all, this is a hilarious question today because Origin just played their first game in the EU Masters and lost. Forgiven went 0-0-2. And he was the only person on his team who didn't die. And he's back to his stat padding ways, like being a useless AD carry when his team is losing because he doesn't know how to take the appropriate risk to turn the game around. Okay, so that's a pretty funny story and good timing. But anyway, the answer is yes, absolutely. But also, I have a problem with your example because it revolves around a single situation in a competitive match where the right answer might have been to take the less risk situation always, because in a competitive match, like, anything can happen. In training is when this is important, and you and I also, because I've never trained with him, have no idea how Forgiven does in training. He might push his limits consistently, and then on stage he might make like what he believes is the correct choice in terms of ultimate opportunity to win the game, right? So let's talk about this limit pushing thing. It's not necessary to increase the risk of the play to make it pull off. You should only be doing kind of like low risk, low reward, or low risk, medium reward plays. That is always the most optimal way to play any game, is to lower your chance of unforced errors and to make the appropriate play. What I want you to think about is how can you take this low risk, low reward play and push your limits in it by increasing the amount of risk that you take on going towards the limit of your physical capabilities with the game. So you're doing the correct play, you're doing the Baron setup or the Dragon setup, and the question is, how far can you push that in terms of maximizing your own opportunity to push your limits? So do you set up the play and you have it accurately going, and then you also engage with the mid laner, or then you, after the mid lane is, after the Dragon is down, you see if you can parlay that into the team fight, or somebody comes to contest you and you immediately jump on them, or you see if you can what exactly you can pull off in terms of your limits with the play that you're doing that happens to be the low risk play. You can make it higher risk by pushing yourself in it, even though you're doing the right play. Because I don't want to encourage people to go out and just make a bunch of high risk plays. I think that's a dumb idea. You should learn how to play the game appropriately. But within there, I want you to imagine there's a circle, okay? And the circle is everything that you can possibly do in the game. But it's within a larger circle, which is everything that it is possible to do in the game if you were a better player, if you were a perfect player. And so here's everything that you can do, and here's everything that could be done. And you want to expand your capabilities in every direction, right? So you go up to the edge. The way that you do that is you go up to the edge of this circle, and you push the boundary of what is possible for you to accomplish by training it, by practicing it, okay? And if you're up at the boundary of what is possible, and you're at the limit here, then half the time you should be on the other side of the line, the failure side, and half the time you'll be on the success side. Half the time you'll do something that you can pull off, and half the time you'll do something that you can't pull off. But that's where you'll be flexing your muscle, essentially. And so you have to get really comfortable with a half-on-half failure. You have to get really comfortable with a failure rate that is not very, I want to say, like, palatable for most people. Not something that is easy to stomach, which is a constant evaluation of who you are and how good you actually are and what your skill level actually is, because you can't paint any rosy pictures of how good you are when you are truly at the limit of your ability and you see in every single play what you can and can't do. You have a stark black and white evidence of exactly how good you are and what you can pull off. So then you need to accept that and be excited about kind of pushing that limit regardless of how it looks in comparison with other people, and in terms both of, are they better than you and that makes you feel bad, and are they hating you for failing half of the time in your games? You're going to have to be oblivious to that and kind of push forward anyway. So that is the answer. Yes. Risk-taking and failure is an essential part of pushing your limits as fast as possible. Now, you can avoid all that if you plan on slow progression and not guaranteed progression, because it's not everybody who can take slow progression and consistently grind it out and consistently stay focused enough to rewire their brain without pushing their limits. But for the rest of us, limit pushing is the way to go. All right, last question. And before I jump into the last question, I want to make sure to recommend to you the MAC program. And this is the program that I use in order to kind of spread the information that I do with pro teams out to the world. It's a 47 video online training program. You purchase it one time, you log in, and then you have access to it permanently. And when I say permanently, what I mean is that this is the third version of this program, and everybody who bought it in version 1 still has access. And when I upgrade it to the app in a few months, you are going to still have access if you have purchased this version of the program. So it's a continuously grandfathered in kind of setup. That grandfathering in is going away when the app comes out, obviously, because apps require some sort of maintenance structure kind of fee thing going on, and so I probably need to move to a subscription model. But you guys who are interested in the Mac program won't have to worry about that, because you'll automatically be in the program forever, and you'll also be beta testing the new app for me once it's ready to go live. You can check out the Mac program, mindgames.gg/MAC, and you can use the code AskWeldon to get a discount, a $5 discount. That way I know that you heard this advertisement here for the Mac program and not somewhere else. And what is the Mac program? Well, it's a lecture plus a seated mindfulness training times 47, one every single day. You can do it 7 days a week for 7 weeks and pump it on out, or you can do it a little bit less frequently. You can't do it more frequently. I don't want you to doing more than one lecture a day, because you need to spend the day reflecting on it and learning from the content that was in the lecture. But otherwise, you're free to kind of move at your pace. And the essential training component is actually the mindfulness training. So while it's very interesting to pick up knowledge and to frame your thoughts around it, knowledge accrual can sometimes be a I don't want to say a straw man, but the kind of thing where you feel like you're growing, but you're not actually. You just know more at the end of the day, but it didn't actually improve you as a person. The mindfulness training in the program is really where you kind of start to flex your mental muscle and start to condition your brain to focus when it doesn't want to focus, and to enact poise when it doesn't want to enact poise, and to avoid a specific internal state when you know that the thing that you want to do is not the same thing that you feel like doing. So you might want to complete an essay, but you feel like procrastinating. You might want to lead your team, but you feel like yelling at them. You might want to be an inspiring brother or friend, but you feel like snapping at somebody for their stupidity. And so it's all about poise and how it is that you can, I don't think subvert or suppress is the right term, but to kind of survive your internal state and your emotions, and then enact the behavior that you know would be best for the situation for the long term. That is the goal. That is the goal of this training. And I hope that you check it out and hope that it's good for you as well. Last question from Eric.
Hey Weldon, right now I kind of have two goals that get in the way of each other. I'm really trying to push for Master Tier this season in Ranked for League of Legends. And recently I've also wanted to try and become a streamer, content creator. And I find it extremely hard to focus on the game and perform at my peak level when I'm trying to be entertaining and like talk to my stream. So, and on top of that, I work a full-time job, so I don't really have that much time to devote to the game. So how can I go around this to be able to complete both my goals simultaneously? Thanks.
Okay, Eric, thanks for the question. Subvert one of your goals to the other. You cannot have two masters, okay? So you need to prioritize which one is more important to you. So get a journal out, reflect, talk to your friends, ask them like, what kind of person do you see me as? And when I say friends, I don't mean like just random people. I mean talk to the people who you know will hurt your feelings to tell you the truth, okay? And just ask them like, I have these two things. What is the higher priority for me? What do you see me being more successful at? What do you see me being more happy at? Ask yourself honestly. Imagine that you just can choose to be both things. Imagine that you are living out a year in the life of both of these situations. Like what, honestly, without the world like kind of like influence you and thinking like, oh, this thing is cooler or this thing is less cool. Which one would you rather personally have till you figure out the priority? Okay, so now you have the priority. Now you can subvert the other one to it. So here's what it looks like, because you can still try to tackle both goals. You just have to have a clear master. Okay, I'm not saying to abandon one. I'm saying subvert one. So let's say that you decide that streaming content creating is the thing and you're going to subvert being a pro to that. So it would be nice if you go pro, but you want to make sure it's 100% success rate at being a streamer content creator. So you go home and you become a streamer, a learning focused streamer. And your goal is education and training and teaching yourself. And the stream is no longer about entertaining viewers. Okay. The stream is now about revealing and showing and displaying your improvement process. Okay. So now you are streaming, but you are essentially showing them how it is that you train and how you try to improve, and how, and kind of exposing that process and showing them your little drill journal and logging in and streaming when you're going to be doing these drills and explaining after a game why your mindset went badly and how you're going to fix it, etc., and what you're planning on doing this week, and showing them your meal plan for the week and showing them your training plan for the week and getting feedback on it, and then saying like, okay, I feel burnt out, and adjusting, and we're just exposing all of that on your stream, becoming a learning focused stream. Then you can become both a content creator and a streamer, and you can also rank up at the same time and get high rank. And maybe you go pro, maybe you don't, but at least you will have a brand based around the idea of improvement. You'll be satisfying that part of yourself while still being a content creator, so you'll be able to do both goals. Now, let's say you subvert it the other way, where like going pro is the thing and streaming is secondary. So then you become a performance-focused stream, right? You don't care about the entertainment of your audience. And I say this in a like, it doesn't matter yet kind of way. Like you're focusing on the entertainment of your audience far too early before you have much to offer them. So I think that you should always focus on yourself until you have a large audience. And even if you have a large audience, you should still focus on yourself, because focusing on your audience and trying to entertain them is a very, very, very bad way to grow an audience. And it's a very bad way to grow yourself as well. You're going to end up just kind of being a caricature of what some random people on the internet believe is entertainment. Okay, so I don't want you to think about it that way. I want you to think about becoming as much you as humanly possible, and then putting that out on the internet in a film form, in a video form, and that will attract an audience of people who would have otherwise liked it anyway, okay? So imagine that there's like an infinite pool of people online, and there's like X amount of people who don't like your content and wouldn't ever like you and want to watch I'm a Cutie Pie. And there's X people who hate I'm a Cutie Pie and will only ever watch Dr. Disrespect. And there's X amount of people who hate both those people and would ever only watch a talk show about sports psychology in esport on the internet. Those people exist out there in the world. There's a whole bunch of people out there who hate all this other content, just like it's so boring to them, but the thing they really want is to watch a talk show about sports psychology on the internet. And eventually, my tweet will come in front of them somehow if I make enough noise, and they'll be like, sweet. So your goal is to make yourself into your brand, whatever that is, and then get it in front of as many people as possible until you find the people who are attracted to what you're doing. So don't think about entertaining your audience. Think about like what kind of brand you want to be in terms of your streaming and content. And given that you have these two goals, I think it's high performance. So like I said, on the one hand, when you're subverting the going pro goal, you're going to be working on making an educational stream that has lots of explanation and lots of exposure of your process. And when you're working on becoming a pro, you're going to want to have a performance-focused stream where you're just trying to perform at a high level, and you're talking about that mindset, and you're using the stream as a way to increase the pressure on yourself so that you show up and you perform well because you're doing it in front of other people on stage, as it were. And they become a tool for you to kind of like hone your performance edge, and not something for you to desperately hold on to and entertain in hopes of, keeping them around. You want to serve them. So the first way you serve them is you attract the correct people that actually like what you're doing just by doing it and not hedging on your values and not conforming to the masses, but just doing you. And the second way you serve them is then you show up consistently and you be you. You don't let them down in terms of giving them what they want. Okay? Hope that was helpful, Eric. Thanks for calling in, and I hope you guys enjoy the show today. Make sure to check out the Mac program. Come by Twitch and enjoy the full version of the show, twitch.tv/mindgamesweldon. I will see you tomorrow.